Yeah, okay. Good afternoon from here. Good afternoon. Please confirm if you can hear me. You write yes on the chat box if you can hear me, to be sure that we can be heard. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thanks a lot. And we can also see the agenda that's already put up. So we are starting right away. It's 2 o'clock GMT +1. Yeah, my name is Osabuohien. With me, co-organizing this program, we have Julie and Tankari from academia. We have Joyce and Tayo from GAIN, and I have my colleague here by my side here, Dr. Urhie, joining me here. So we are so much happy to see you join us on this workshop. We appreciate your time. We know we don't have lots of time, so it will be very helpful if you can just write your name and affiliation on the chat box, so that kind of a self-introduction. Why I straight away welcome Julia and Tankari, and then again for the welcome remarks. Once again, you're welcome so much. We appreciate your time. God bless you. Julie, and what is thanks a lot.
Okay. So let me start.
Okay, I can stop sharing. If you want to share, let me stop sharing. Thank you. Yeah, let me stop sharing. Go ahead.
Okay, so I would just like to say a few words. So good morning or good afternoon. My name is Muhammadu Tankari. I am the Deputy Director of the Department of Capacity and Deployment, and also this project leader at AKADEMIYA2063. So I would like to welcome everyone and thank you for taking the time to attend this validation workshop. This meeting will be an opportunity to share with you the findings from the piloting of the tools that we developed in collaboration with GAIN. So more importantly, we are expecting to get during the discussion, which will certainly contribute to improve the tool, as we are planning to pilot it in more 5 countries. I would also like to thank Prof. Evans and his team for the implementation of the tool in Nigeria, and GAIN team in Nigeria for their valuable support. As you all know, policy coherence is crucial to effectively transform our food system and achieve desired outcomes. So countries are designing and implementing policies that affect different segments of food system. But we know that crafting effective policy responses is made more difficult by the important interaction between different dimensions of the triple challenge that we are facing, which is ensuring, for example, food and nutrition security, livelihoods, and environmental sustainability. So in order to really ensure that we are designing effective policies, taking appropriate action to ensure food system policies are coherent, and required to identify area of underperformance, and which means we need a set of metrics in order to assess the performance or identify the area of underperformance in our food policy system. So in other words, a tool for assessment should be flexible enough to be applicable in different contexts, while allowing for cooperation over time and space. I would like to stop here, as in the coming presentation, my colleague will present you in more details the background and objective of the project. Thank you for your attention.
Yes, thanks so much, Tankari. Julie, over to you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Professor Evans. Thank you, Tankari. And greetings to everybody. My name is Julie Collins, and I'm a senior associate scientist at AKADEMIYA2063. I'm one of the people at AKADEMIYA2063, along with my colleague, Dr. Tankari, who's working on this project on food systems policy coherence. And I am going to give you a little bit of background about what we're trying to do in this project and what we are hoping to learn from the workshop today. So I'm just going to put my slides in presentation. And I think you can all see my screen. Please let me know in case you don't.
Yes, you can see it, but not
Great.
yet.
Yes, you can see the screen.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank
Right.
you. So we're here today to talk about food systems policy coherence, and specifically the development of a diagnostic tool to assess food systems policy coherence. And it's good to start just by talking a little bit about what we mean when we say food systems policy coherence. As my colleague Tankari mentioned, food systems are very interlinked. The different components of food systems have a lot of impacts on each other, and policies that are designed to affect outcomes in one area of the food system could have and do have a lot of consequences and outcomes for on the outcomes in other food systems components. So food systems policy coherence is something that we're defining more or less to mean the alignment of policies in different food systems components, to ensure that policies designed to improve one outcome in one area of the food system don't undermine outcomes in other areas of food systems, and perhaps even have synergies, perhaps even contribute positively to the achievement of outcomes in other components. So the idea of food systems policy coherence, this recognizes that there are interlinkages between different components. It recognizes that there are impacts that these components have on each other. It recognizes that there may be unintended consequences of policies. And it also recognizes that sometimes there may be trade-offs between outcomes in different areas of food systems. And why do we talk about food systems policy coherence? It's because if we increase the coherence of food systems policies, we can ensure that the outcomes of these policies are met. We can ensure that one policy is not undermining the achievement in other areas. And it helps draw attention to the potential for unforeseen negative impacts, as well as opportunities for increasing the synergy between food systems policies. And it's important to note also that some degree of non-coherence is hard to avoid, since there are definitely trade-offs between different types of food systems goals. For example, there may be trade-offs between agricultural production goals and environmental goals. There may be trade-offs between goals for income for producers versus food prices for consumers. There are a lot of trade-offs that may result in some degree of policy incoherence, and looking at the food systems policy coherence helps to draw attention to what these trade-offs are, and maybe helps to inform discussions among policy stakeholders in the country about what choices to make in the case of trade-offs. So there have been a lot of efforts lately to measure food systems policy coherence in different countries or different regions. And normally how this takes place is an expert, maybe an international expert in food systems policy coherence, comes to the country or region, or maybe an expert in the country does it themselves. They work with other policy stakeholders in the country. They generally use key informant interviews, review of policy documents, and the expert's own assessment of coherence, and create an ad hoc study based on this review. And these studies on food systems policy coherence are very useful. They have very rich information, but they are not available for very many countries. They are time intensive, resource intensive. They're limited to only the areas where an expert has had the ability to take this on. So we, as AKADEMIYA2063, we are an international organization based in Rwanda, also active across the continent. And we are working together with GAIN, the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, to try to develop a diagnostic tool which would allow countries to evaluate food systems policy coherence themselves, without having a very in-depth and ad hoc study to be able to do their own assessment of food systems policy coherence. So the goal for this tool is to identify areas of coherence and non-coherence in policies, and then suggest options that countries have to improve coherence. And as my colleague Tankari said, the tool needs to be practical, it needs to be feasible, it needs to be applicable to a wide variety of countries, not just one or two. And it also needs to be able to provide some suggestions and recommendations that countries can implement to improve coherence. And of course, the development of a tool like this is challenging. Food systems policy coherence is very, very country specific. Normally it looks at whether policies in one country are coherent with other policies in the same country. So developing a kind of standardized tool that could be applicable to different countries is not obvious. Other questions that have to be thought about as we develop this tool are, how do we define the level of detail? How do we define the scope of the tool? Does it look at all policies, all policy instruments? Does it take a more high level and broad view? What kind of detail should it look at? We need the tool to be easy to implement, but also specific enough that it can identify areas for improvement. So we have developed together with GAIN a prototype tool, and it's based on questionnaires that look at different elements that contribute to policy coherence. It's arranged in 3 modules. The first module looks at whether there are structures and mechanisms in place that could support policy coherence. So module 1 doesn't look at policy coherence itself, but rather if the country has the structures and institutions that could be assumed will contribute to policy coherence. So for example, are there multi-sectoral working groups? Are there meetings across different ministries, et cetera? Module 2 is what gets into the heart of policy coherence. And this module looks at whether policies and instruments of the country are coherent with some common food systems goals. So the approach that we decided to take in order to make this tool applicable across countries was to identify a set of goals, food systems related goals that are very commonly seen in countries. We identified about 10 goals, including, for example, an adequate supply of staple foods, affordable prices for staple foods, more consumption of healthy foods, less consumption of unhealthy foods, affordable wages for workers, inclusion and empowerment of women and girls in food systems. We identified these goals as very commonly shared. Most countries that would apply this tool probably have these goals as part of their food system strategies. And so we wrote questions in module 2 that try to look at the coherence of policies and instruments in different areas with these common set of food system goals. And you'll hear more details about what these goals are in the presentation by Professor Evans a little bit later. Then there's also a third module, which looks at whether policies in the country are consistent with the prevailing social and political context. So it looks at the preferences of different stakeholder groups and see how those match with current policies. And this tool is being piloted now. It is going to be piloted in 6 African countries in 2024, and Nigeria is the first country that it's being piloted in. The pilot of modules 1 and 2 was already carried out in August, and we very much thank Professor Evans and his colleague, Dr. Urhie, for carrying out that pilot. Module 3 is in progress now. It is currently being piloted. So our goal today is to share the findings from the pilot of modules 1 and 2 and to seek your feedback, which we'll then use to improve the tool. Afterwards, we'll be piloting this in additional countries, but before we move to the next country, we want to adjust the tool based on the lessons learned from the Nigeria experience. And your opinions and your feedback will help to shape the improvements and changes that we make to the tool. So we're going to be asking you quite a few questions in our discussion later today, but we are going to want your feedback on things like the findings of the tool. Do these make sense to you? Do they align with your understanding? Are there anything that seems off to you that needs to be changed? And your reactions, not just to the findings of the tool, but to the tool itself and the types of findings that it's giving. Is it relevant? Is it looking at the right questions? Are the results actually useful? Can they be used to inform action in Nigeria to improve food systems policy coherence. And Professor Evans and Dr. Urhie will also have some questions for you on specific policy areas that they wanted to get more information from different stakeholders to refine the results of the tool. And I want to acknowledge also the funders of this work. Again, AKADEMIYA2063 is working on this together with GAIN, and it's part of a larger project that GAIN is running to improve food systems policies, and it's funded by a group of donors, which we very much appreciate. That's what I have to you on the background and information. I'm happy to answer any quick questions. And Evans will also present more on the tool itself. So back to you, Evans. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I don't know whether we can clap for Julie with our digital hands. Thanks so much. I think you can, like I mentioned on the chat, let's note our comments and questions on the chat. So we'll take all the questions together during discussion. I think that will be much more efficient. Yeah, thanks a lot, Dr. Julie, for such background and insights. We want to quickly take one or two words from GAIN. So afterwards, I'll call on my colleague Urhie, who is by my side here, to present some of the findings on the text using the tool that Julie has just mentioned. I don't know, Joyce or Tayo, who is just a word from GAIN. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Evans, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to join this session and to go over the piece of work that we consider very, very critical in our efforts at advancing food systems transformation. I mean, like Julie has shared in her presentation, you know, achieving the desired outcomes objectives would, to a very large extent, be dependent on how aligned and coherent our policies are, given how broad and diverse the food system is. And I think for Nigeria, it's also a peculiar situation, given the size of our country and the complexities that come with that as well. So for us, we are very much excited about the possibilities that this tool will have once concluded, and definitely our expectation is that that would help us in strengthening the policy space. So thank you for giving up your time and also participating, and we look forward to continuous engagement. Like Julie had mentioned, this falls under a broader project called Nourishing Food Pathways that's been implemented by GAIN. It's implemented across 12 of the GAIN countries, and this is as a fallout of the UN Food System Summit in 2021. And we're working closely with governments at the various countries where we're implementing this program to support in ensuring that the national pathways to food systems transformation that has been developed by most countries is implemented. And definitely GAIN is part of a broader ecosystem of support, working with other stakeholders to provide much needed support to governments to drive implementation of initiatives that would support food systems transformation. So we're looking forward to positive outcomes, and thank you very much. And let's be attentive and contribute, because I mean, it's more around getting feedback on how we can do things better. So we're very much hopeful that your honest feedbacks and contribution would be provided, and that would be very useful. Yeah, thank you. Over to you, Evans.
Thanks a lot, Madam Joyce, for that. I will quickly share a slide and then we take it over from there. I don't know, please go forward. I can see my screen. Can we?
Yes, we see it.
Oh, thanks a lot. So it's a privilege to be pioneering or piloting this case, food system policy coverage tool for Nigeria pilot on this workshop. I'm here for my side, my colleague, Dr. Urhie, who has been working with me on this project. Thanks a lot, Julie, giving us the background. So what we are doing, so we not waste time. Basically, so introduction has been given, what is it about, The objectives has been presented by Julie about what is the tool about in modules 1, 2. Just as she has mentioned, we have this workshop is on modules 1 and 2. And she has also given us about the info on diagnostic tools that we're looking at. And so shortly now, I will, for the structures that, the sectors, this is the framework for module 1. So we have framework documents about, in that module 1 has about 6 questions covering that item 1. And why for political commitment, there are 3 questions there that we assessed. Then the third aspect on module 1 was the capacity and implementation. About 5 questions are in there. Then the fourth item is the governmental coordination structures, having 5 questions therein as well. Then the fifth item is inclusivity, stakeholder engagement, and voice, having 3 questions. And then the last one, the 6th item, was issue of monitoring and accountability that has the highest question with about 7 questions. So that's basically the structure of module 1. Then for the sectorial classification of sectoral policies that were covered, we have agri sector with HG as the abbreviation. The third one is the health and nutrition, HN as abbreviation. You have the environmental sector, EN at the end. Then trade policy, about trade. Then the fifth sector we covered there is in that module 1. In the sectors is the social protection XP, and the 6th one is the industrial economic growth and the monetary policy. So these are some of the sectoral policy documents that we reviewed. We right away hand over to my colleague as he starts from here, Dr. Urhie. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Evans. And so welcome to everyone. I'm glad to be with you to share our findings on this pilot study. My name is Urhie. Please, I will want somebody to respond if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So, like Evans mentioned, these are the sectoral policies that we examined. That yes, this is the structure for module 2. Like Julie rightly said, there are 6 major goals, and each of the goals is further classified into sub-goals, making a total of about 10 goals altogether. Okay, so I'd like to share the method we used to arrive at our responses to the questions. To answer the questions in each subsection in module 1, relevant documents were collected and reviewed. There were also interactive sessions with key informants that are knowledgeable in the Nigerian food system policies. After that, we had follow-up with some of the key informants via email and phone calls. For module 2, we designed some methods to be able to come up with something that could be an objective evaluation of the degree of coherence. And the first thing we did is to review appropriate policy documents and respond to all the questions for each goal, choosing either reinforcing, conflicting, or neutral. Many of the questions came with either a yes or no response, but the fact that it is a yes does not necessarily mean it is reinforcing. It could be yes and also be conflicting. So we stick to reinforcing, conflicting, and neutral. Step 2, we went further to calculate the percentage of coherence using reinforcing as coherence on one part, and both conflicting and neutral as non-coherence. So we have 2 broad categories. Either the policy is coherent with the set goal or it is non-coherent. And then in the major documents, we have some questions that have reinforcing +1, reinforcing +2. We also have conflicting -1 and conflicting -2. But all that we just group as one. for simplicity. Then the third step was to classify coherence level using as shown on the table by our right-hand side. So this was designed that if to a particular goal, the policy documents we reviewed found that all the policies were coherent with the goal, then we say that is 100%. And then that is TC, totally coherent. Then if the proportion of coherence is 50 to 90, we call that largely coherent. 20 to 49, partially coherent. 1 to 19, non-coherent. And the last one is grossly incoherent, where a particular policy document or instruments does not support any of the questions in a particular goal. So this is the classification we used. Now, findings on Module 1. From the documents we reviewed and the interactions we had with experts in the field, it was found that Nigeria has a food system pathway document. This document was presented at the United Nations Food System Summit, held on the 23rd September 2021. The document is the outcome of consultations, dialogues, and workshops involving numerous stakeholders that make up the food system in Nigeria. Many of the food system priorities are yet to be incorporated into national plans as observed. Now, since we have experts in the house, we already responded to the questions, and then we believe that to the best of the materials at our disposal, we're able to provide responses. And we want to set some of these questions before experts in the house to either validate, confirm our findings or otherwise. And if it's otherwise, then we could be pointed to areas where such responses could be found. So based on available documents reviewed and interviews, it is evident that the government has made serious efforts to establish and sustain a credible food system pathway or strategy in Nigeria. However, there is a need to confirm our findings in the areas of capacity and implementation, governmental coordination structure, as well as inclusivity, stakeholder engagement, and voice. The questions and choices made are presented in the following slides. Okay, this is a question, for instance, in the area of capacity and implementation. And the question asks, have the priorities laid out in the pathway strategy and or action plan, if developed, been incorporated into national policy strategies and plans, or are they based on referencing pre-existing national policies, strategies, and plans? And our response to this is, from what we could gather, is no, but the process is in course or initiated. So this is a type of question we need confirmation to. You know, there are developments every day. Perhaps the material we sourced from where we got our response could be a bit outdated. There could have been just one that came up last week after preparing this pilot. So we need to be updated if this response is accurate. Then the second question is there a costed investment plan or budget to support the implementation of the pathway? To this also, our response is no. And we also observe that there is no process to do so in course or initiated. This is another question, also borders on capacity and implementation. Are there plans or structures, either internal or external, to the government to support capacity building of government staff across sectors on key topics related to food systems and integrated food systems approaches. The response we have for this is no, and there is no process to do so in course, or neither has any been initiated. The next question is on governmental coordination structure. And the question there is, are there designated champions or advocates for a coherent food system approach embedded within different government departments or agencies? From our findings, the response is no. Then these questions are in the area of inclusivity, stakeholder engagement, and voice. And the first question there is, are there mechanisms in place for consultations with non-governmental technical scientific experts on food system policies that cut across different sectors? There are two versions of yes, but the option we chose is no, based on the documents we could lay our hands on and the discussions we had. Stay on inclusivity, stakeholder engagement, and voice. Are there any mechanisms currently in place for regularly consulting non-governmental, non-scientific stakeholders? The examples are there: citizens, civil society groups, private sector groups, and so on. And our response to this is also no. So that is for Module 1, our findings and some crucial questions that we need confirmation to from experts in the field. Now we move on to Module 2. The review of Nigeria's national development plans and policies in the 6 selected sectors with reference to their coherence with the goals of food system revealed mixed results. Like the table we had earlier, it could be totally coherent, partially coherent, and so on and so forth. For each of the food system goals, some provisions of a given policy support their achievement, while others either serve as hindrances or are neutral. In view of this classification, provisions of some sectoral policies were found to be totally coherent with the food system goal, with some food system goals. Others were found to be grossly incoherent. So for the totally coherent, we have 100%. For the grossly incoherent, we have 0%. And in between, there are about 3 other variants. So we highlighted the results for the ones that are totally coherent, the one that had 100%. So from the table here, we take, for instance, goal 1.1, which is increased supply of main staple crops. And 2 sectoral policies were found to be totally coherent with this goal. We know there are several questions in each goal. So for all the questions asked, the policies, the agricultural policy and industrial, economic, and monetary policy were found to be supportive 100%. This 100% is also applicable to goal 1.2, which is affordable prices for main staple crops. And the policies that were found to be totally coherent with this goal are the health and nutrition policy and also social affairs policies or social protection policy. Same applies to 2.1, goal 2.1. And the policies there are environmental as well as trade. For goal 2.2, climate change mitigation through food system, the health and nutrition policies were found to be totally coherent. Let's goal 3.2, Where we have less unhealthy food consumption, the trade policy had 100%. Goal 5.2, more effective nutrition-sensitive social protection. We have 3 policies that were totally coherent, and these are the health and nutrition policy, trade policy, and the environmental policy. And for goal 6.1, the health and nutrition policy and environmental policy were also found to be totally coherent. We now went to the other extreme, because we are looking at totally coherent and grossly incoherent. So these are some goals where we found 0 coherence with respect to some sectoral policies. For instance, goal 2.1, which is food system better adapted to climate change, the health and nutrition policy we didn't find anything that supports this goal when we review the health and nutrition policy. So that is 0 coherence. For 3.1, where we have more nutritious food consumption, the environmental policy was also found to be 0. And 3.2, less unhealthy food consumption, the agricultural policy had 0 coherence. Then the last one is goal 5.1, adequate living wages for food system workers. And the industrial, economic growth, and monetary policy were found to be grossly incoherent. So those are the findings talking about the level of coherence of the goals in the 6 selected sectors with respect to the food system goals. In line with the practice in Module 1, some questions are highlighted for expert confirmation, just like we did for Module 1. And here we are starting with the agricultural policy and instruments. These questions are highlighted, like Julie rightly said in her introductory remark. The 2 things, we are watching out for 2 things here. 1, the responses we gave, are they in tune with reality? And 2, where it is found to be neutral or conflicting, the document, the tool we use, has provided suggestions. So where our response is neutral or conflicting, we will also highlight the suggestion provided by the tool. It is left for the experts in the house to review this and see how realistic and how appropriate such suggestion is. So for our first question asked, do agricultural policy include agricultural research and development, R&D funding dedicated to crop breeding or main staple crops relevant to the country's context? And our response is yes. Our response is yes. The experts in the house can speak to this, how true this is. Then there's a second question there which says, do they include support for staple crop producers, access to inputs, e.g. seed, pesticide, and fertilizers? And from the documents reviewed, we could rightly say yes. Then we now move on to health and nutrition policy. And our first question there is, do health/nutrition policies and instruments promote nutrition-sensitive agriculture practices, including family farming, home gardens, and homestead food production for main staple crops? Based on the materials we have, the response is yes. Now, this is a question that has to do with a situation where the policy was neutral. That's looking at the health and nutrition policy. And the question is in goal 3, sub-goal 3.2, which is less unhealthy food consumption. The question is, do health and nutrition policies and instruments include limits on the salt added /free sugar and or fat content of processed foods, or incentive to reduce the content? The response we have here is no. In that case, the policy is neutral to this goal. And since that is the case, the tool has provided this suggestion. If the no is correct, and therefore we are looking at a neutral situation, then we consider instituting limits on salt content of processed foods to lessen risk of diet-related non-communicable diseases. So we believe that this is the suggestion, and it is also open for our stakeholders present to either support or give us some additional suggestions. We are seeing on health and nutrition policy. The second question there is, do health and nutrition policies and instruments require mandatory nutrients list on packaged foods? And the data for that is there, and our response is yes. We now move on to environmental policy and instruments. We are looking at goal 3, healthy diets, and sub-goal 3.1, more nutritious food consumption. And the question is, do environmental policies and instruments include objectives of or support for land consolidation? Our response from the review we did is no, and that no is neutral. However, the tool didn't provide any suggestion for that. We now move on to the next question. Still in goal 3, sub-goal 3.1. The question is, do environmental policies and instruments restrict the use of land for agriculture in urban/peri-urban locations? And our response is no. The next question is in the area of trade policy and instruments. And we are looking at goal 1, which is zero hunger, and sub-goal 1.1, which is increased supply of main staple crops. The question is, do the country's trade policies and instruments include tariffs on imports of the main staple crops? Our answer is yes. To that extent, this goal is conflicting with this provision is conflicting with goal 1.1, and a suggestion was provided by as contained in the document, and that is to say we should consider lowering tariffs on the main staple crop to enable their affordability so as to strengthen food security. Still on trade policy and instruments, goal 4, sub-goal 4.1. The question is, has the country ratified the WTO trade facilitating agreement aimed at expediting the movement and clearance of goods along the supply chain? Our response is yes. We now move on to industrial economic growth and monetary policy. We are also looking at goal 1, which is zero hunger, and sub-goal 1.1. And the question is, do economic or monetary policies and instruments limit the availability of foreign exchange, either generally or specifically, for the importation of the staple crops or the agricultural inputs and equipment? Our response is no. Okay. The next question is in goal 5, sub goal 5.1. And the question is, do industrial policies or the economy-wide practices ensure adequate earnings and productive work for food system workers as reflected by actual average earnings in the agriculture, forestry, and fishery sector? The response is no. And if that is the case, a suggestion has been provided, and that is to negotiate minimum wage rates to ensure that workers have access to decent living wages in terms of current country realities, such as high inflation rates. This will enable the freedom of workers. It should also enable the freedom of workers' association and trade unions to ensure the protection of workers, including ensuring adequate compensation. Now, this is another question that borders on climate and disaster resilience. And the question says, do the country's national policy instruments extend climate-related subsidies to enterprises or industries that engage in zero carbon practices or other climate change mitigating practices or climate smart firms? And our response is no. In that case, this suggestion has been provided. Consider extending climate-related financial incentives to all agri-food operators to enable a holistic mitigation of the food subsector to climate change. So those are some of the questions we want experts to comment on in 2 ways, like we said earlier: the accuracy of the option chosen, and also the suggestions given where the cases are either conflicting or neutral. Challenges concerning Module 1. Information on the activities and achievements of various stakeholders in the Nigerian food system is not well coordinated at present. Also, the level of communication is not high as would be expected, given that food is fundamental for human existence. Many of the food system priorities are yet to be incorporated into national plans. This calls for deeper assessment and integration, which will likely be done during the next review of the policy instruments. These are challenges related to Module 2. The fact that a policy or plan that supports a given food system goal is not found in the main policy documents does not mean it does not exist. You know, we work based on the materials we could actually lay our hands on and the information we got through interviews. The implication of this is that other documents will need to be sourced before a decision is taken. We actually did this, but we can't be sure we got hold of all documents relating to this. Conclusion and suggestion on Module 1. The Food System Department, the Ministry of Budget and National Planning should set up a unit charged with the responsibility of collecting and disseminating the activities of different stakeholders in the Nigerian food system. Also, more coordination with other related agencies, as well as more intentional communication, is essential. For Module 2, all ministries and organizations in the food system should include publication menu on their websites, where all information and publications meant for public consumption are uploaded. I believe this will help a lot in filling this or responding to these 2 modules, because if something has been done and the information is not in the public domain, one would think it is non-existent. So this will help a lot in the response to the two modules. Thank you very much for your attention as we await your responses.
Okay, thanks a lot, Dr. Urhie, for that presentation. We appreciate your elaborate presentation. Now we have time for Q&A. I know it's the time we'll be waiting for. I think, Julie, I should handle it. So I've seen a hand that's raised. So we can raise our hand to talk directly, or we can put our comments in the chat section. So either way, we are good to go. Yeah, okay. Okay, Zacchaeus, your first hands, followed by Professor Adedoyin Lawal, second hands. Okay, so let's take them in that session, and others can be putting our comments in the chat session. So, Dr. Zacchaeus Oluwafemi, over to you. After that, Professor Lawal Adedoyin comes on. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for this initiative and ideology. Honestly speaking, the topic is very fascinating and needed in Nigeria of today, because the issue of coherency in our policy is a fundamental issue, because there are a lot of policies of ascertain we have been observing in Nigeria. And if there's any other time to look at this issue, this is the relevant time. Because currently, we are all seeing what we are facing with food issues in Nigeria. Everybody knows that there is fundamental issue. Now, I really appreciate the initiative once again, but there are some issues I want to raise. In all the modules considered, sir, who are the stakeholders that this study contacted? Why do I ask that question? From my little knowledge of food issues, we have political issues and we have the fundamental and realistic issues. Because contacting documents may not give us the information needed to make empirical policy. That's the fundamental thing, number one. Number two, when I consider the concept of food system starts from input, production, processing, marketing, before we talk about the consumption, which we reflect in the society. Generally, currently now, because by God's grace, I'm a farmer, I'm a researcher, and I'm a teacher. There is fundamental issue with food input of food, because an average farmer cannot access and afford the price of input generally. Currently, in my location, the price of fertilizer, which is fundamental input, is no form of fertilizer less than 40,000 currently. So that is because it's the only way we have correct policy on inputs that will determine the production, and that's why we gear up other process up to the consumption and the waste management. That is number one. Based on the theory, let me quote Professor Osabuohien, our former MDC director, when he was teaching us agricultural policy in Nigeria. Most of our policies are the best in the world. But when it comes to implementation, we are almost zero. So how do we consider it? Because when you say, I consider from Obasanjo regime, when you talk about the poverty eradication cassava initiative, let me take that cassava initiative. When the policy came on board, people were hopeful that.
Hello, sir. If you can make it brief, sir, can give room to others. I think
yes.
That would be great.
So the farmer embraced the initiative, but when it comes to the processing, nobody was ready to take the farm product from them. That is number one. Another thing is that, do you consider farmer, or maybe this study contacted farmers in their food production, to know actually how this policy from the top is reaching them, the bottom people, the stakeholders, because farmers are real stakeholders of the policy. They are the one who can tell us that are they really accepting or receiving the policy. So generally, sir, because of time, I want to commend this initiative honestly, because there are a lot of incoherency that we need to correct so that we be able to have correct food system. And at the same time, when we look at generally the government policy, let us look at the ongoing subsidy problem. It's turning on farmers because they are feeling the bruise of the policy. Because of time, let me drop here because I maybe any other aspect I can just come in. I will be well available because I have interest in this study.
Yeah, I can see the passion as a farmer, as a teacher, as a lecturer. So you are three food stakeholders. Thanks a lot. Yeah, your comments are well noted. Issue of police somersault coordination, and you mentioned the question that those who contacted as stakeholders. Thankfully, many of them are on this call, so we'll take that later on. That's one big question you have asked. Let's now go to Professor Adedoyin Olawa, over to you. After that, we'll take Kodua, Henry Kodua, then fourthly, we'll take Sonia. Lawa, please, over to you, sir.
All right, thank you, Prof. Thank you, the team, for wonderful presentation. I really, really appreciate it. And then I think it is very key now, given what Nigeria is passing through at the moment. Where you see, as good as the issue discussed is, probably because of poor network, a number of us missed out some of those presentations. Usually, the comment of statements made by the presenter, Dr. Urhie. So I want to ask one, probably, is there a way that, we can get probably the printed copy of it so that probably we can go through it and then get well informed about what he was saying. At a point, for some time, his voice was not audible. And then the thing was connecting and disconnecting. That's one. And number two, I want to know, I missed it out. I missed out that point. Who are the respondents? Because some of the things that I could hear him said, I might not be able to, align with them. So I want to know who are the respondents. And then I want to know, in terms of policy alignments, I want to know, was there anything put in place to be able to separate sentiment from facts? Just the respondent, sentiment on part of the respondents, and then the fact or reality that that is visible in Nigerian context. And then maybe because of poor network, I miss out the conclusion. What are the policies in terms of alignment that the study was able to find out? I think these are the things that came to mind now. That I think if I get clarification on them, it will help me understand fully the work that has been done, and I appreciate it. Thank you once again. Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
thanks a lot. For quick ones, I will respond, and other ones only will come later. Yeah, for the slide, we can share our slide. We'll just go to our partners, academia, and again, we'll have it to our slide. Then the recorded session is the session has been recorded, okay, also with permission from our partners. We can also share the recorded session. I think we want much more input, like it was mentioned by Julie. The first one in Africa pilot. So every input that we needed are welcome. So it's not only for Africa. We're also going to get it here for Nigeria. It will be improved for other African countries. So it's a tool that will be developed for the African countries. So all the inputs are needed. Welcome. So the slide could be shared, the recorded session could be shared for participants who are joining this session. Yes, the next one, who are the respondents? Okay. That is close to what Femi asked. We will respond to that shortly. And the sentiments and facts. Yes, we are building on facts, not sentiments. We are Nigerians, yes, but we are affordable researchers. And like you also remember, we're part of the expert group on agriculture set up by Nigerian Economic Society, where you also remember of that. So we based on facts, what's available for us, both on the documents reviewed from the contact we have with stakeholders. So not, it's based on fact, not sentiments. Policy issues in the conclusion. So one question will be reserved for Uli later on. Let's take others for as we go on. Thanks a lot. Okay, Okuda, if you're ready, we'll take you on now. Then after that, Sonia, we come on. The code was it before? Okay, like your hand have been dropped. Okay, then let's go on to Sonia Bonjari. After that, we take Adiola Ademiji.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, madam.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I actually want to talk about implementation because when we talk about this coherence, the policies might actually show coherence, but the major concern, I think, should be about implementation. What is feasible? What is happening? What are we seeing on ground? Because in documents, we could have it that, yes, they are coherent, but when it comes to practical aspect, then it is not, because it could be documented that this could help to improve this or this supports this. But then when we now go to the field, we'll find out that we have a different thing entirely. The implementation is not there. We are good with policies, but our major challenge is actually the implementation of these policies. Then secondly, I want to ask, if we make these inputs now and adjustments are made to these models or the program or the project, now that has already been done in Nigeria, will a repeat be done to now see how these inputs that have been made, if it will bring about any changes in the original results? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Sonia. I think 2 points raised there. One is of it's not about just the policy document, but the issue of implementation, which is well appreciated, which is why we actually have these stakeholder meetings so that we are grounds from the researcher, foundationers, expert council, from various ministries, from central banks, from the National Assembly. We're all here on this call. So that is one issue. So what we're doing is basically to have such real information from the system and not just a policy document. Number two, input made now, will it, how will it, one, it will be used to recast the tool. And then whether there will be a repeat of it, that we cannot say for now. By and large, most of the stakeholders in this policy domain are actually on this call. So they are listening to us, and we are hopeful that will gain. It's part of most of the work with most of the stakeholders. So we are hopeful that this discussion will help to shape the tool and also use to update our reports. That's what I can say for now. We can take more work and then if there are quick ones. Yes, Adiola Adeni, your hands have been off for some time. So
yes,
please,
thank you so much.
When you have talked, you can put on your hand. Say you have a fresh hand. Say your hand will not pay you. Okay.
So thank you so much, Prof.
Yeah.
It's a great privilege to be here this afternoon. My name is DIaDeRC. I'm from Nigerian Export Promotion Council. This is actually my area of field, and then I'm actually glad to be with every one of you to speak about Nigerian food policies. I could remember 2016 working with UNIDO, which is the United Nations Industrial Development Organizations. There are so many food system policies that were actually put in place for Nigeria. But we can ask ourselves, where are these particular food system policies that were for enhanced Nigerian food trust and food trade? Recently, we've been hearing about food rejections, about Nigerian food agro-commodities. And that's one area of areas that needed we to support. Also, we have many experts coming together. We have Dr. Oluwafemi Stevens from the Federal Ministry of Health. It has a food system policies that is coordinating around the world, around all entire Nigeria. We can harness all these policies together look at it one way or the other, and we can work together instead of each and everyone working in silos. So we need synergy. As food experts, we need synergy. We have to work together to see that we will be able to achieve a food system policy for Nigeria. It's not only affecting Nigerian market, international market, it's affecting even the local production itself. And I can remember a few days ago, or a few months ago, I participated in international standard organizations, good standardization practice. I was told to bring about Nigerian food safety system policy. I couldn't see how I could get alongside with it. And this is one of the critical issues in which we're supposed to harness, we're supposed to look at as experts together. Let's bring up together, let's look at ways in which we can harness all this so that we can promote even the food trade for Nigerian commodities, because it's not only going to go a long way, it's going to go a long way for Nigerians, for Nigerian exportable products, and also for every commodity that is being produced in Nigeria. So I will say congratulations to every one of us that is being present here, and I will say thank you also to Professor Evans for this wonderful good work, job well done. And I want to say to everyone, let's work together as a team. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you spoke like a preacher. So the area of policy coalition cannot be overemphasized, and synergy, the issue of UNITO policy strategy. Like I'm happy that we have different stakeholders. This is a call actually for us to work together, a researcher, academia, the policy makers, all of that. We are all into it. Somebody has said that there's no substitute for hunger. So we are. So your message is well noted and appreciated. This could be a forum to stem that coalition. Yeah, I think Julie will now jump on it. Julie, your hand has been on. Over to you, Ma.
Thank you. Thanks, Professor Evans. And thank you very, very much, everybody, for all of your comments and questions. And looking forward to getting more. But I just wanted to reply quickly to Sonia's comment about the difference between what's in the policy document versus what's actually implemented on the ground. And we are very happy to have the expertise of Dr. Evans and his team, and also all of your expertise. It is true, though, that the way that the modules are designed and the fact that a lot of the information to respond to the questions comes from document review, from review of policy documents. It is focused more on what is in the policy documents. So on the policy side, more than the implementation side. And this is something that we discussed quite a lot with GAIN when we were working with them on the tool. We know that sometimes what is in a policy document really doesn't correlate with what's actually happening in the country. And maybe coherence that you see in the policy documents, or even incoherence that you see, maybe isn't actually reflected on the ground. However, looking at implementation makes it definitely widens the scope of what the assessment is trying to do. It makes it something, I think, that requires more of a much more in-depth, a much more lengthy work to look at how policies are implementation. And so for that reason, the tool focuses mostly on the written policies, what is in the policies themselves. We know that it's a limitation, but we thought that we have to do this just in order to strike a balance with feasibility and broad applicability of the tool to different countries. So maybe my question for you is, even knowing that the tool does not cover implementation adequately, is it still useful to have these findings on what is in the policy documents themselves? Or is it not particularly relevant to know what's in the policy documents themselves? Is it still worth it to undertake this assessment looking at what's in the policies? Or is it really not useful if it doesn't look more at implementation? I think that's the follow-up question. Is this still useful, even though it doesn't cover very much this important area of implementation?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Julie. It's relevant. It's still relevant looking at the policies. I think if we are able to confirm if there's coherence by looking at the policies, then this could serve as a basis or a background for further studies to now look at implementation. So we can now look at the countries with this policy coherence and say, okay, these and these sectors or areas, they have coherence. So now let's look at the implementation. Let's see if what we have seen in the documents are actually happening on ground. So other stakeholders, other sectors, other organizations can even request for our findings for the findings from this project and use it as a guide to actually do the study or maybe implementation. So I would say it's still relevant, even if it doesn't look at implementation itself. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that. I think that definitely would be ideal if this could serve as a background to then further work to look at implementation.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot. I've not somebody hand was raised before, like he has dropped it. And Joshua, okay, he's back. Joshua, sure. What is that? My brother Tuli will come in to respond. Joshua, you're okay, go on.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and well done, Prof and the team. So, yes, we know that there are policies in Nigeria on food systems, which is okay. And as regards implementation, right, we know that there has been issues about that. So, my own comment or clarification is on your suggestion and recommendation as regards, I want to be sure, is it lowering tariffs for agricultural production that I see there? I want to be sure because I want to, was it considered vis-a-vis food, you know?
I want to confirm so I can take that. Go on, Joshua, please. Joshua, are you maybe your network? Joshua?
Hello, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Like you went off a little bit.
Okay, I said well done. I spoke about the policy. Yes, we know that food systems policy. I mean,
yeah, you mentioned.
I will speak to the agricultural policies. You know, we know that there are policies. Yeah, we know issues on implementation, and then I was now trying to be sure that your suggestion and recommendation that I observed, I'm seeing lower tariff. I want to be sure that is that what I'm seeing there? And then was it considered with import substitution strategy? We know that there are issues at the moment where 150 days window removal of suspension of tariff. Yes, we know that. But I'm also saying that your suggestion, does it go along, does it consider import substitution? I want to be sure on that. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, this is what we have on the this is our own opinion. So what are you suggesting? That's what that's part of the reason for this meeting, this workshop. Just to add to it, last week we had our Nigerian Economic Society, the 65th annual conference, and we have a number of stakeholders there, ministers that are there. And one of the things that one of the things government is doing almost presently, given the high cost of food prices, is part of this try to lower tariff for the food crops so that food prices can come a little bit in the immediate or in the short term. But if you have superior suggestions, please let us know. Thank you so much.
Okay, sir. We understand that.
Can I speak that?
Okay, who is talking? Let's make it coordinated. Julie hands is up. I will Zach, okay, make it brief and I will not go to Julie.
Now, yes, because of time, I want to react to that issue of tariff.
Okay.
Although in short term or long term, we need to consider the tariff, but overall, reduction in tariff is not favorable to our farmers because we are competing with foreigners. So this issue, it should be a temporary approach because of the crisis we are having now. But overall, we should be able to talk about to the farmer side so that we will increase the production from the farmer side. But import, allow other people to bring food to us. It's not sustainable, sir. That's just my position for now.
appreciated. In other words, we should substitute from the angle of production and not consumption. Okay, it's I just added it. Okay, Julie, let me recognize your hand, please. Over to you, ma.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, Joshua, you come after Julie, please. So we're asking your question. Yeah.
Okay.
Julie.
Yeah, let me come in very quickly just to say thank you for these questions, and you are getting at a very, very important challenge of this tool. We wanted the tool to generate recommendations for countries, so we have written our own recommendations that are associated with different answers. However, we know very well that everything is very context specific. What could work well in one country doesn't work well in another country. And also a very simple and basic recommendation might not be applicable. There might be other things at play. And also this comes into the issue of trade-offs and the fact that something that supports one food systems goal may not support, may conflict with another food systems goal, because lowering tariffs on imports of the main staple, it does not support the goal of promoting domestic production of the staple, but it does support the goal of lowering prices of the main staple. So if you're looking only at the goal of having lower prices for consumers, letting your consumers afford food, then lowering import tariffs might be a very good idea. If the goal is rather to incentivize local production, local farmers to produce that staple, then lowering these import tariffs maybe isn't the best way to achieve that goal. So we wanted to generate recommendations, but we want to be very clear that it's for the country to look at these ideas and just take them as possibilities and think about other conflicting goals and think about the country context in order to decide if this is something to consider or not. That's basically every recommendation that we wrote. We start with the word consider because it's not something, we cannot just make a recommendation without knowing more about the country context and without knowing about the other goals of the country. And we also have tried to flag where there are trade-offs, because there is a trade-off in terms of tariffs between affordable prices on staples for consumers versus higher prices for the producers of the crop. So yeah, thank you for raising it to our attention. And we're definitely aware of this kind of issue and are still thinking about how we can address it and how we can make recommendations that are perhaps useful, but also that aren't overly prescriptive. We definitely don't want this tool to sound like it's trying to very strongly recommend one particular action, since we know that there's a lot of conflicting goals. So back to you.
Okay, that's a lot. So two things mentioned there: issue of context specificity and issue of a trade-off. Okay, noted. Sonia, your hand is back again up, and Lawa, is it the old hand or the new hand?
It's the new hand.
Okay, make it brief, and then we'll come to Lawa.
Yeah.
Yes.
Concerning the recommendation about tariffs, just like Dr. Julie said, it depends on what the country's goal is. My contribution is that in order to look at affordability and availability of the staple foods, especially looking at Nigeria, I think we should work on insecurity. Insecurity in these crop production areas, especially the northern zones and then the middle belt like Benue. Now, I was part of a study that was carried out in northern states where we have more production of some of our foods like beans, yams, onions, and some other basic crops. Now, during our research, it was discovered that around harvesting time, farmers couldn't even go to their farms to harvest their products. Why? Because of the issue of insecurity. Majority of them were being kidnapped. Some were killed. And so initially they even had a challenge about planting. At the planting season, many of them couldn't even go to farm to plant. Those who took the risk after planting, harvesting became a problem because the bandits and the kidnappers targeted that period, knowing that so many farmers would be at the farms that period. So they targeted that time to, ambush them either on their way to farm or when they were at their farms. So some persons actually abandoned their farms for their safety. And then those who took the risk to harvest those crops now consider that and then increase the prices in the market. And knowing that there's no enough of those food crops because maybe their colleagues couldn't even harvest theirs or harvest all of theirs. So they know there's no availability. So they took advantage of that and then increased the prices. So I think we should look at insecurity in these production areas. Well, when insecurity is brought to its barest minimum, I think farmers will feel safer to go to their farms, and then it could also help with increase production. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Madam Sonia. Okay, we went to the issue of security. We also jump towards increasing production.
Hello?
Yeah, okay. I think Lawa, your hand is still. Is it Lawa or Joshua? Since
my hand is up.
Okay, Lawa, Joshua, and then
I
think I'll make it. Thanks a lot.
Just briefly on this issue of tariff, the trade-off. Okay. You see, for government now, government wants to increase revenue, and lowering tariff might not be appealing to government on the one hand. However, for the citizen, lowering tariff is a way to lead to reduction in cost of food. So it will be appealing to the citizen. So it depends on what we want to drive out. But I think beyond, just focusing on tariff, if we encourage government not to lower the tariff, because it will serve as a way of, generating revenue for them. And, government is talking about raising revenue now by all means. I think we should be able to, I don't know if there's a way of, calibrating the role of security, just like the last speaker said. Security, securing the land. Most of the food crisis we have in Nigeria is insecurity induced. That's one. Then the political will on the part of the government as well to address issues and security of purpose. I don't know if there's a way the study could, calibrate some of these things, addressing insecurity, political will on the part of the government, and then sincerity of purpose, so that whatever policy government is even throwing to the people will believe they have some, level of confidence in the government, in the system. Because as I'm talking to you now, the perceptions, public perception of government is extremely low at this point in time. And those are things that, affect outputs and then the macroeconomy as a whole. Thank you.
Hello? Yeah, thanks so much, Lawa. Thanks so much, everyone. Joshua, want to talk again?
No. Yes, Prof. Thank you. When I raised that, when I pointed out the issue of tariff, then the other person that spoke briefly, but I was not able to, make my submission. And then there's another question I wanted to ask. As an agricultural economist, I put in context now. I want to ask, number one, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, were they involved, because I know that they champion agricultural policies, are they involved in this study? That's number one. I don't know. And also, I want to speak to that issue of tariff. Now, you know that I made mention that currently, the federal government suspended this the tariff for 150 days period so that they can lower prices. However, if you look at it very well, I made mention that was it considered vis-a-vis import substitution. And the reason why I asked that question is number one, for the issues as regards why are the prices, of staple food, why are they high? And a quick response would have been that is as a result of the supply. Because the supply is low as a result of that. Now, if they are trying to say, okay, those that can import, those that can bring in grains, let them bring it in. So, because by the time you are looking at the landing cost vis-a-vis the current price in Nigeria, you will see that it's more economical to those that can, do that. So the essence of the tariff, it was not even looking at, the revenue side to the government. It's as a result of, trying to say they want to bring down the price. So I am more, and my suggestion is that, efforts should be made on, stimulating production. We know that prices of inputs are very high. Thank God someone has mentioned the issue of fertilizer, but fertilizer is not just the only input. All the inputs, some of them, they are imported, and FX issues are to come in. So so that we'll put things in proper dimension. We'll dimension it very well. The issue of FX has to come in. The insecurity issues have reduced supply, but there's a need to balance, the issue. What we have said, the tariff is temporary, that's why it's a short-term window, but we are pushing, to stimulate agricultural production. That is not the best way to go. It's to ensure that all the parameters to stimulate production is well considered. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Joshua. I think I'll give a few minutes to Urhie to respond. Since, okay, I think that should be old hand, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks a lot. I think one more thing I'd like to add before I give to Urhie is the issue of these fuel prices that went up, given the issue of petrol subsidy removal. We saw that, like we said, it's not about production, even the logistics, the value chain from the farm, transported, processing, also affected food prices. So these are the other issues that could be taken care of in the long run. So I'll hand over to Urhie in the next few minutes. Let me give the response to a few ones that I have not. Okay, there's one person from the Minister of Environment, Mrs. Margaret. I will recognize you immediately after Urhie. Thanks so much, Madam. Urhie.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would just want to make one or two comments. The first is starts from Joshua's last comments and suggestion. Actually, the module 2 is a large document. The questions that cut across the different food system goals are so many, and they encompass the issues you've mentioned. I think that speaks to why what Julie mentioned, that the document is complex, because when you are trying to address a particular problem in one area using a policy, it's counterproductive to another goal. So it's a very complex document, and part of the discussion is that this document, we try to streamline them so that some questions may be removed, so that it becomes a bit easy to comprehend and have a way forward. That is that. Then the issue, Sonia asked a question. I think Julie spoke to it, but let me just add my voice. From the discussion we had, this is a pilot, and is to elicit suggestions to improve on the document. We may not do this study on Nigeria again, but the document will be revised before it is sent to other countries. So the issues noted here will be taken into consideration. I don't think we may do this pilot study in Nigeria again. Then the last one is conclusion. I know somebody mentioned about the map from talked about UNIDO. He mentioned things about various policies that are in place, and we seem to be working in silos. This also informed the suggestions we made in Module 1 and Module 2, that the food system department there should be more active. They should be able to collate all these food systems, all the stakeholders in the food system, so that in one shop, we could see a lot of things they are doing, which could also help in informing our choices. And the last one is the ministries also. They need to include publications that are meant for public consumption on their website. This will help because, like I said during the presentation, we are
I think we lost Urhie, unless it's on my side.
get. And Urhie was basically and other documents. So
Okay.
that is it.
Okay, thanks, Urhie. Our time is up, but I want to recognize Mrs. Margaret from the Ministry of Environment. Thanks so much, Madam. You have the options.
Okay, thank you very much. I just have a few comments. We, like a lot of participants have said, we need to work together. And this is not just about different government agencies, it's also about the different tiers of government, because in some policies you see their implementation, there's some implementation, whatever, from different tiers of government. The state government has a role to play, local, not just the federal. And then I also want to say that one of the things that in food production, one of the things that I'm not sure we paid a lot of attention on is the transportation of food. We waste a lot of food. Sometimes I wonder whether it's the quantity we produce or the quantity we are able to preserve. I think the road network is very important. Transportation of food is very important. I'm sure if you can solve that, we will see that the food security may not be as bad as we think. And then I also want to suggest that going forward, Nigeria has a number of agric research institutes, and I think they have more grassroots connection than even the Ministry of Agriculture. So I would want to suggest that you could also involve the different agric research institutes in some of these research. You probably will get some data that you will not be able to get in the ministry. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a lot from that is noted. The issue of states, yeah, we discussed that as well with GAIN, but our focus was that it's on the national, but it's well noted. I know we have the ADPs, different states levels, but the point you mentioned about the issue of our transport logistics system is very important because if you go to my village, you see a lot of food being wasted. Meanwhile, it's needed in the city. Our time is already about 2 minutes. Before I come on the academia again to give closing remarks, Jola, is it very burning in your heart, or I know you're from the National Export Promotion Council.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much, Prof, and the team as a whole. One person has said it all. The value chain is very, very wide when it comes to food. Yeah. We need to look at various aspects, starting from the farm to the end consumer. Now, if you look at from the farm, what are the factors affecting them? If you look at the final consumer, what are the factors affecting them? What are the factors affecting the trade as a whole? It's not only tariff. Forex issues are there. For all these people involved in every issue when it comes to the trade aspect, are the Forex available? Also, not only the Forex available, are the business enabling environment being there for them? So, if we are saying it's just only the food system alone, we need to concentrate more. That is a very, very wider scope. And that is why I'll continue to reiterate it. We have to put in place things at this proper right time. Because when it's not being done at the right time, the end lose of it will backfire on the people that are the populace. And that's why we have to work alongside to see that the food safety pathway are always available. Our coherent system is there. Our ethics systems is there. And also, we have to put eyes together, not working only in silos, but we have to put together, we have to work together in synergies for us to be able to achieve this. Thank you once again for the wonderful opportunity.
That's a lot. Synergy. Yeah, we are behind schedule by 4 minutes. Julie, and again, closing remarks. I want to appreciate everybody for your time, for the passion, for the comments from different perspectives. It's well noted. Honestly, we got more than we thought we should get. I want to call on Julie and Tankari again for the closing remarks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Prof.
Yeah.
So first of all, I would like to thank all the participants for the quality of the discussion that we had. I am really impressed by the feedback, great feedback that we got from this meeting, and that is the objective, because we want to get some information, some feedback from you in order to improve the tool. So it's a pilot, which means that there is room for improvement. And I noticed several important aspects that you raise. And I think when we take them into account, they will help us to improve the tool. So thank you again. I would like to thank all the participants, Professor, you and your team, my colleague Julie. I would like also to thank GAIN team in Nigeria. So thanks for your time, and we can continue the discussion, and feel free to reach out to us if you want more clarification or you have any suggestion. Thank you. I would like to stop here.
Thanks a lot, Tankari. Usually, last word or final word. You are muted. Julie, you are muted. Oh, maybe network. We can only see, but you can't hear you. You are muted. Okay, before then, Gail, you have anything to say? Either from
Joyce.
Joyce or Tayo? We're about to close now.
Thank you very much, Evans and the entire team, and to everyone who has contributed. I think the conversations have been robust, and I would expect that the team would take feedback. A key thing I wanted to emphasize was the fact that, I mean, a lot of our conversations also delved into what I would call, the key implementation issues, which are things that we typically face on the field. But looking at what we're trying to achieve at the first instance with the policy coherence tool is to first look at that as a starting point, because if the policies that are meant to guide our initiatives or interventions or activities are not aligned, then definitely when everyone is carrying out those activities, then the trade-offs that would come out therefrom would not be properly managed, and you might just sometimes find that we're working at cross purposes. I think a very key area that we've been having conversations around now have been the impact of food systems activities on the climate and environment, and vice versa. So there are quite a number of areas where we expect to see that government and of course practitioners and stakeholders are very deliberate and intentional about how we implement certain activities, bearing in mind the impact those activities have on another subset of the food system. So I'm sure the conversations will only get richer, and I believe, the output from this piece of work would only help further enrich the work we're all doing towards ensuring food security and a food system that's sustainable as well. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time.
Yeah,
over to you,
thanks
Evans.
so much, Joyce. Appreciate. Yeah, I don't know whether Julie's mic is. I want to hear our last word before we go. Julie, is your mic working now? Julie, I've come up to your mic. Otherwise, we have spent extra 9 minutes for this workshop. On behalf of Academia, GAIN, and ourselves at Covenant and DIaDeRC, we want to sincerely appreciate everyone for your time. As mentioned, with the permission of Academia, again, we will share our slide to you to look at in depth. And I think the concept have been shared earlier, we can share as well. And the recorded session can be shared with the participants with the permission of our partners. Once again, we want to sincerely appreciate you for your time. And I mean, the quality of discussion is quite appreciated. It was the depth of passion and insight. Once again, thanks a lot for your time and effort. Julie, I don't know whether your mic can let you talk now. I want to hear your last word before we go. Otherwise, we are good to go with 10 minutes extra. Okay. Okay, you can. Yeah, thank you so much. Julie, we can help with the last one in text. Otherwise, we're done extra 10 minutes more. Once again, thanks everyone for your time, for coming. we will keep, one thing that have come clear is issue of a synergy, issue of collaboration. We will keep in touch with the rest of participants, and possibly we'll share this slide and news. Once again, God bless you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks so much. Tankari, thanks so much for hosting this event. Thanks so much again. Thanks so much everyone from the various ministries and various agencies. We appreciate you so much. God bless you. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Wow. Stop recording.